Welcome to What's the Story Dublin, the official Dublin City Council podcast with me, your host, Deirdre Malumbi. This podcast deep dives into the work of all the moving parts that make up Dublin City Council. It also shares news of the Council's latest initiatives and exciting events. In today's episode, we're looking at Dublin City Council Culture Company. I'm delighted to be joined today by Iseult Dunne, who is CEO at Dublin City Council Culture Company, and Linda Devlin, who is Director of Curatorial and Heritage Programmes at Dublin City Council Culture Company. You're both very welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Deirdre.
So I am going to ask for the long definition as well as the short definition, don't worry. But for those totally unfamiliar with it, if you had to summarise Dublin City Council Culture Company in a sentence or two, how would you define it, if one of you want to take that?
I must say, Deirdre, it is a huge challenge to summarise what we do in a line or two. And I think there are marketing companies all over the world who get paid lots of money to kind of do those elevator pitches. What we talk about is that what we do is participation in culture, avenues, pathways, programmes to activate people's desire and passions to be involved in culture in the city. Some of the culture we make, some of the culture is already made by others, and we bring people towards that.
And what would be kind of the longer explanation for what Dublin City Council Culture Company is and does?
Well, Dublin City Council Culture Company was established by City Council to work on participation programmes into culture, to work on cultural things, cultural buildings, cultural programmes, cultural outreach, cultural engagement programmes, and works in community settings, all about culture, but about people activating their participation with culture, getting involved in culture, trying out new things, learning about new things, being exposed to different things. And we also run cultural buildings that are municipal city council buildings and other programmes in buildings that are owned by city council. So there's a huge range. We can't really explain it in one way or other, but it ranges from running buildings that are cultural for city council and making things in communities within the area of that the city council is in charge of, but also doing other things as are needed by the kind of idea of how do people more actively participate in culture where they live or in their city, and in different kind of culture than they might already be doing themselves. So trying to kind of expand those participation kind of ideas, opportunities, comforts, exposure, confidence. There's lots of different words you could use for that, and there's lots of different ways of doing all of that.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Iseult. And actually, you touched on some of the things that we will be talking about today, including some of the buildings that the Culture Company runs and some of the programmes that you run as well. But I was wondering if maybe you and Linda, you can talk a bit to this as well. What kind of backgrounds do each of you come from? Would you have come from a kind of arts and cultural background before coming to Dublin City Council Culture Company?
I'll tell you, for the Culture Company, as we stand at the minute, we have a huge range of experts in a vast range of fields: heritage, history, festivals, event management, community engagement, finance, all of that, side of the house, of course, is all, so we have a huge range of expertise in-house, which is fantastic. My background has always been culture, but always been kind of managing, not doing. I'm really bad at making things myself, but always kind of managing around culture and a lot of work also with City Council around festival and events, but also before that in other settings. And I really started thinking about it's about, audiences. It's not really about the culture. I mean, it is, I could argue with that rant any which way, but somebody needs to be working on audiences, how we get
kind of engaging people
and remembering to invite them the way that they can hear the invitation or receive it and can act on it. And so I suppose even before this, but my kind of interest changed towards getting audiences involved in something that they wanted to be involved in, rather than in the culture making in its own right. And that's kind of my background. And then the Culture Company in its own right comes from a background of engagement and all of that kind of work. So it made sense. I was working on pilot programs for City Council that were about that before the culture company was, so it's a logical transition about audiences and about citizens of Dublin, people who live and work in Dublin, being involved in the things that the city can offer. But our focus is audiences, not culture making.
Yourself, Linda?
Yeah, in a similar way, my background was always in culture, but also in community development. And a little bit in education and learning, but in community settings. And I loved when I could work on something that brought all of those things kind of together. And, I did also work in music management and just kind of straight up like festival and events. But my real passion was when the engagement kind of was there and working with people in communities and bringing them through a process, and sometimes them bringing you through a process. So when I began to work with the culture company, I was just fascinated because nobody really was doing that sort of work, and it was something I was seeing from my own work in communities that was really needed. So I was kind of drawn to it straight away, and really proud of everything that we've achieved in the last few years.
And Linda, I was hoping actually you could maybe talk to us a bit about kind of some of the go-to stalwart programmes that you guys run at the Culture Company. There's the likes of Culture Club, Tea and Chats and Culture Connects that come up again and again. So what can you tell us about these ongoing programmes? What are they like? What kind of people do they usually engage?
Yeah, so we tend to think of our programmes more so in terms of we've got partnership programmes and we've got programmes that are more in community settings. So our partnership programmes would be actually a lot with Dublin City Libraries. We run the Dublin Festival of History with libraries, and we also run the Historians in Residence programme. So I'll just talk just a small little bit about those first. Mm-hmm. So the Historians in Residence, we have 6 at the moment, and they work in neighbourhoods across the city, linked strongly in with the libraries and community groups, and it also includes a historian in residence for children. And that work is really very much, again, based on listening and engaging with people and just finding those pathways that, people might think history is not for them, or something, whether it's you've never done history before or you're a history buff, that you've got this local resource in your local historian in residence that you can connect in with and, find a way in, whet your appetite or, get inspired to do more in history. And that's been a kind of major success story for Dublin City Libraries and for our own partnership with them as well in recent years. And then annually we have Dublin Festival of History as well, which the historians in residence are involved in too, but that's huge festival that takes place every autumn, and
we'll have a podcast episode dedicated just to that.
Fantastic!
So,
I won't go into it too much. Yeah. So those programs are again they're all based on these sort of building blocks around listening to people, trying things out, going to places, and sometimes doing some making as well.
We also then, I'm going to just interject a little bit, but the other kind of strand of programs that we make are things set in communities. So currently we are running creative residencies in leisure centres. So Dublin City Council Sports and Wellbeing Partnership or Dublin City Council Sports and Leisure Recreation Centres and placing kind of artists and culture makers in those settings in partnership with that unit to bring people towards the leisure centres, but kind of in a different way. Mm. And maybe they get involved in sports and activity and the activities that the leisure centre offers, but through a different way, by being involved in a dance class or being involved in, craft making. And so we have a lot of different artists working in different mediums as such, but it's all again about doing something in a place that you don't already coming into that place, getting involved in something that you're enjoyed, and then maybe doing more things in that place. So we kind of separate that into kind of these things that we do in communities. That's my example of them. We do many different versions of them. So that we're sometimes in the buildings that we'll talk about in a minute. We're sometimes on the kind of programs and events across the city, and sometimes we're making things in places. And that's an important add-on. It's hard to explain. We have names for all of the different programs, but they're all based around, as Linda has said, the idea of being with people where they are, trying things out, and this kind of core program that runs in behind it, which are the ones that you mentioned, which is Tea and Chat and Culture Club. And both of those are about us either going out into across the city and talking to people about culture and things that people want to do, things that people feel about where they are, where they live, what happens where they live, things they'd like to try out. Maybe we can help refer them to things that already exist that we know about. And then another program called Culture Club, which is really about bringing people to the places where culture offering exists, but maybe they haven't been to before. So Culture Club, we have about 16 different partners. You know, Dublin is very lucky to have all of the national cultural institutions, but it also has many municipal institutions as well as other creative communities that are making events and spaces and museums, and just a whole range of city archives is involved in Culture Club with us as well. And it's bringing people who've never been there before and bringing them in a way that they want to come, that we make it, you know, easy for them to book and whatever. And the place, the partner provides the content, the tour, the visit, you know, they are the experts. But we kind of top and tail the experience a little bit to make it a little bit easier to be on your own, to be the first time visitor, to never have been before and not know how to behave there, to, you know, whatever your particular barrier to entry kind of might be. And we just top and tail it. And, you know, we've done this for 10 years. We know how it can work to just make it a little bit more so that maybe next time you can go on your own.
Yeah. It sounds so lovely and welcoming, really. And we've touched on it already, but Dublin City Council Culture Company does run these two really historically significant buildings in Dublin. There is Richmond Barracks in Inchcore and 14 Henrietta Street. Maybe one of you can tell me about these and one about the other, or if one of you wants to talk about them.
Sure, yeah. So I'll talk a little bit about 14 Henrietta Street. So that's a social history museum of Dublin life. When you come through the door in 14 Henrietta Street, it's just instantly, you know, you're in a special place. And it was a home for over 300 years. So when you go there, you really get to experience, and I should say true guided tour only, the stories of the people who lived there over those 300 years. And, you know, it was a very grand Georgian beginnings and right through into its tenement time. So you hear all of those stories. And we talk a lot in Henrietta Street about the walls. We're obsessed with the walls. And the house itself is 50% of our collection. And the walls have like literally layers of Dublin history on them. When the house was being restored and conserved, some of the wallpaper came down, you'd see, you know, other layers behind it, and you can just peel it back and you found out about, you know, the next kind of era of the house. So it's a very special place. The guided tours that we have there, especially the way that we run our guided tours, and I suppose the way that we, in inverted commas, curate the museum, is very unique. And we have one very prestigious prize, part of the European Museum of the Year Award, the Soletto Prize, for our engagement work. So we run different programs. One of them is called Your Tenement Memories. And we sit down and we listen to people who have, in some cases, first lived experience, and we listen to their stories in the first person. We record them, or sometimes it's a family of somebody who has since passed away, or they have memories of being in their relative's house in the tenement era, and we record those for just to be able to add to, I suppose, an archive, a very important archive for the city. And just that act of kind of remembering as well. And then we feed that back into all of our programming, and it feeds into the tour of the house. So just constantly listening to people who have connections with the house, and also experts, obviously, and historians and visitors to the house. And that really plays a central part. That's really the heart and soul of the house, is that kind of experience. And that really comes across if you've ever been on a tour in Henrietta Street. We also run...
My sister and I actually went last summer, and it's just terrific. And when you see the red on the walls and you hear all about the history of it, it's such an incredible tour, you know. And really, the guides do bring it to life. Like, you have to have the full experience.
Yeah, and you could come back any other time, and we'd welcome you to do the tour again. And it would be a little bit different. Yeah, you know. So everyone has their kind of, they might pick up on something in your tenement memories that they bring into their tour, and somebody else might resonate with them. So you could come back again and do the tour, and you'll be surprised at it. It's just a little bit different.
Terrific. And a bit about Richmond Barracks then. And I love they have a number of fairs during the year as well, I believe. Yeah,
Richmond Barracks is a great place. And it is a place where we have co-located a programme of ours called Culture Connects, and City Libraries run Inchicore Libraries from there. And I suppose when I was talking earlier on about the kind of the programs that we run in places, Culture Connects is one of them. And it's a program that we have really tried out based in that building in Richmond Barracks, and really are ready to roll it out in lots of other buildings should they happen upon our desk, because it is just a really good model that we've now worked out. And our method is, I suppose, to learn and be prepared to fail and to try things out. And I say that with confidence. You know, that is not a failing of ours. That is a point of confidence. People are different in different places. People want different things, and it's our job to pay attention, to ask questions, to listen, to adjust. And we're really good at doing that, and we're really pleased to do that. And so we've really kind of got a sense of what works. You have to start, and you have to try things out, and you have to be prepared to leave things behind, and you have to be prepared to do other things and to do more of one thing or the, you know, to be flexible and to be agile. So what we do with Culture Connects, currently at Richmond Barracks, but soon to be other places too, that it's the idea of try it out. Come in, try it out. Try it out for a week, try it out for an hour. If you like it, we'll build more, you know, and if you don't, you can try out something else. And so there's a whole range of programs that might include a choir that was a few people and now is 100 people, or a creative writing class that was a class but now they're kind of a community group doing it on their own. They come back to us maybe if they want this, that and the other over the course of it, but we're kind of establishing that they're doing it, they can do it in the building, but they're doing it on their own, and we're making a new group, you know, because they've kind of, we wouldn't say graduated, but I'm going to say it, but you know, they want to do it on their own, and they have us if they need us, but they don't need us. So there's just that idea that it's always about community making at the same time as access to culture. And that's a really important thing that myself and Linda have said in 10 different ways of using the same words to say the same thing. It always has to be both at the same time for it to be the kind of work that we do. So Culture Connects is at Richmond Barracks. It's the kind of program that we want to bring to other places across the city, and they'll look different in other places. And it's about trying out culture, getting involved in workshops. You mentioned the fairs. We do a lot of work with the local artists and social enterprises and businesses, but also people not so local, you know, and it's a community fair. We do one once a season. At the minute, we're having a little bit of works done in the building, so it's not on at the minute, but the fairs are usually seasonal, and it's just about gathering performers, food options into the gardens. The gardens in Richmond Barracks are beautiful. And in the building, having traders, artists, local history groups, vendors from near local, from further local, a range of things that are usually seasonal. We try and have a theme per fair, so we curate that a little bit, you know, so we're talking about in autumn that we're talking about, autumn and harvest and things like that. And in spring, we're talking about regrowth in spring. So, you know, that we just kind of align it with the seasons a little bit. At Bridget's Fair, we were always celebrating women in business, which was in February. So that we're trying to look at a little bit of a seasonality, but really it's just about a really good day out where you can come with your family. We even let your dog in. You can go to the library. You can go to the garden. You can eat something. You can buy something. You can look at something. There's a load of workshops that you can join in on, try all the things that we do the rest of the year. So you're really getting a flavour of the kind of things, but it's a good day out on its own right, but it also is about introducing people to what we do at Culture Connects in Richmond Barracks.
Brilliant. And actually, one of my favourite initiatives that you would have launched at a culture company in recent years is Culture Near You. Could one of you maybe explain to the listener what that is, when it started, how it works? Because it's just such a terrific programme in terms of, like, you know, anyone who utilises the service basically can find out about culture or arts events that are happening all around the city, really.
Yeah. So Culture Near You is a part of a larger project. And the larger project is a cultural audit. And we were asked, by City Council, Dublin City Council, to do an audit of culture. This is a few years ago now. And we had a working group, all the different sections within DCC, and we added into that different people in culture across the city, you know, so that it's kind of a city council and people working in culture together. And we kind of set up a few terms of reference, you know, that culture isn't the places where culture happens. It's them, but it's also the people who make culture, so artists and things like that. But it's also cultural things like a festival that isn't a place or particular people, but it's part of the culture of the city. So there's networks, organisations, people, building, and then sports is part of culture. So pitches, facilities, you know, so all of a sudden we kind of started making the list of all the things that are culture. And culture is a funny word. People sometimes use it to mean art. Sometimes people use it to mean things they don't do because what they do isn't, you know, so people use the word differently. We're talking about sports, libraries, all of the definitions of art forms, anything recreational. So the audit is everything that is culture. So sport pitches, facilities, DCC owned, non-DCC owned, arts and that side of the house, organisations, community group, networks, you know, so it's a huge list. And it sits on DCC server and it can be used on the various information technologies that DCC has, you know, that integrates with other data sets that they have, which includes Map Enterprise, GIS, et cetera, so that they can use it to kind of, make planning decisions around this is where something already exists, this is where something doesn't exist yet. Here's this many users, here's this many people. So there's a really good data. And while we're making all this really good data, which we is up to date, we keep up to date every year, every month, every day. We said, God, that's really useful information for humans. Let's put some of it out for humans. So there's some you can't put out because it's GDPR, whatever, or it's not interesting. But what if we make a user interface that is for the public, for visitors, for people who live in Dublin, people who are visiting briefly? So kind of a subsection of that data is out in a platform or a website called Culture Near You, where you can find, and it's organised in that way, which is if you want to go and find a swimming pool, you just go to Google and you go swimming pool, and Google is the right answer. But if you don't know exactly what you want to do, but you want to do something out and about, or you want to do something that's kind of heritagey, or you want to do something that's a bit active. Yeah. Our search functions within Culture Near You are those things, are that personal wish. I want to get active. I want to find out
what's happening in an area on a given day. Yeah.
And it's organized. So many
great search functions.
Yeah, it's organized by where you search for, or if you just go near me, something that's a bit active. And it could bring you to a sport you've never done before. It could bring you to, if you wanted to, learn something new, it could bring you to a heritage site you didn't know that existed. And we just kind of established, I suppose, a lot of our research tells us that people kind of go, leave the house, turn left, off you go. The world could be on the right, but if you've always turned left, you might not know that very near you is other things that you didn't imagine. So it's organized like that. So it's not a Google search engine for something that you specifically know. It's about finding something near you, wherever you determine you is, that you'd like to try it.
Brilliant. And actually, you mentioned the company strategy there. And I think as we're kind of coming to the end of time here, it's a good point at which to bring that up, because you did launch the new company strategy for Dublin City Culture Company just in recent months. And that kind of outlines 2025 to 2030. So I thought we'd maybe end the podcast by looking to the future and kind of reflecting on that strategy. And maybe both of you can speak a bit to this. But what can we expect next from Dublin City Council Culture Company and kind of your contributions to the city, I suppose.
We're laughing. I think based on our experience, we should change the name because it's very long. I'm only joking. The idea is, I suppose the Culture Company was formed and then it kind of took it, a year to make a strategy. That's kind of pretty straightforward. And we were established and set ourselves up from scratch. So we're a company. We needed to do all of our policies and all of our documents and all of our procedures and everything that a company needs to do. And we were running our programs and we added some new ones, and we launched 14 Henrietta Street. So that was a big focus. And then that's running. And then we launched Richmond Barracks, but we continued with another program and we kind of were finding our feet around all of that stuff. And
remind me again, so what year did the company start in? So we're talking like timeline wise.
Yeah, so we formed as a company in 2018.
Yeah. So you're just babies, really.
We're just babies. Now, we were a pilot kind of program working with City Council for about 2-3 years before that. So this is consolidating that work. So the work would have started in 2015 that has become consolidated within the company. As Teen Chats, Culture Club, they all date from kind of 2015, but they've been consolidated and added to that has been things like 14 Henrietta Street, Richmond Barracks and, 20 other things we've invented and then a few partnership programs we've also gotten involved in. So we're growing fast. Yeah. And we are really talking about this strategy being about, okay, we're going to set it out in this strategy. We want to be what we are. We want to get stronger and better at what we are, but we're confident that what we are is good. And I suppose that's a big deal for us because as a group of people, as a company, we weren't ever feeling really that confident about the model of trying it out, seeing what works, seeing what sticks. Does that sound like professionalism? Does that sound like expertise? Does that sound like confidence? And I suppose our strategy now is saying, that is a confident way to act. We are confident that this company is important. We are confident that it is adding value for City Council and for people in Dublin, whether they're visiting or live here or whichever way they encounter the work that we do, that it's valuable for the cultural institutions just as much as for the audience member or the visitor, and that we want to be sustainable in how we grow that. And I don't just mean the world and sustainability. I mean, sustainable as a company, well resourced because we receive our funding from City Council and we are well resourced and that is fantastic and it allows us to be as strong as we are. We kind of answer that with full transparency about all of our governance models and our board and how we manage our affairs so that we are being trusted and are trustworthy. So that's important things to say. These are important things to say. And moving forward then with confidence in these programs, we know what's working. We know where we can add. We know where we shouldn't add. And we want to consolidate over the next 5 years to get stronger at the things that we know that we're very good at. And we have a really excellent team and they're very good at their jobs and that we just come forward with that confidence. And in the first strategy, we're kind of going like, we're thinking set up this thing. And we weren't speaking of confidence in the same way. So that's the big change.
Yeah. More focus, I suppose, and more, we know what's working. This is what we want to add to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I just add to that, I suppose that the process itself actually of making the strategy was a great opportunity for those moments of, looking back. Of course, we have an evaluation framework of, that measured things that we did for the first few years under our first strategy. But just kind of formalising, I suppose, what we were doing and looking at the methods that we were using in things like Culture Connects, but across all our programs really. And we've spoken about, we've touched on it before in terms of the listening, trying something out and going and making and all that stuff. But we realised what we were doing really was using this kind of learning cycle model where people are coming in at a particular point. They are, going through an experience and that we were providing opportunities for that to happen and then for them like that there was different kind of touch points around this cycle. That they would get to connect with other people. They would get to maybe validate an experience, by talking to someone else about it or maybe bringing a friend the second time. And when we looked at it all the kind of different programs, which could seem kind of, quite different from the outside looking in. But actually when if you remove the top layer, they're actually kind of the same, and they're based around this cycle. And we realised that's actually, really pivotal to how it's been working. And as Iseult said, the word confidence there a lot of time, but just kind of realising, actually we've really built this framework, and let's actually formalise it and give it a name, and, draw it up as a diagram. Really, I suppose, start to look at how we can use that more, and how we can strengthen that and bring it into the next part of our work. So.
Brilliant. Thank you both so much. And I appreciate the fact that, we could talk so much more about everything that Culture Company does. So I'm sorry we're limited by time and everything. But is there any other kind of like final additions that you guys would like to make, or a final word?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose what we haven't really touched upon is that Dublin City Council is the only council that has a company like this, that looks at audience engagement, audience outreach, community engagement, with a view to culture. It's the only one. And actually we have a lot of interest from Europe and wider afield. And Dublin City Council is still the only one. And just globally, City Council has won awards for having us. And it's important. We can't, everything that is being done has to be done for the people, or at least part of it has to be done, So I just, a huge credit to City Council for thinking in this way. And we're taking a huge credit for the work that we do, because we work hard. But it is the only council that has a culture company that works in cultural participation and community engagement with an eye on culture. And it is internationally regarded for having it.
That is perfect. We'll leave it there. So thank you so much, Linda and Iseult, for taking the time to talk to us today, to teach us all the wonderful things that Dublin City Council Culture Company has to offer. And we're just so looking forward to seeing what you both do next.
Thanks so much, Deirdre.
And thanks again to today's guests, Iseult Dunne and Linda Devlin. I'd also like to extend my thanks to our audio engineer and editor, Robert Fay. This podcast was produced by myself, Deirdre Malumbi, and Michael Ryan, and recorded in the Central Library Studio. Be sure to spread the word if you're enjoying What's the Story Dublin, and to like and subscribe for future episodes. Slán go fóill.